What did y'all
No, we're
first
just
Well,
album?
doing no,
we're
we're
trying to
actually
do the Impact albums.
the albums that made a
Well,
huge, big ass impact.
let's do
I
the
guess
Eagles.
the Eagles would be Hotel California.
Yeah, let's
Yeah,
do
that'd be
that.
good. Okay,
Yeah, let's
there.
do
I
that.
know YR mentioned about doing one of the Black Sabbath albums since he saw
Oh
Zach
yeah,
Sabbath
whatever.
last week. Yeah.
Yeah, whatever y'all want to do. Either one.
All right. We could
Well,
possibly
Sabbath would
do
probably be the first one.
that's true there, but then again, we also got to include the second record, Paranoid, because how much of a big hit that album became.
Commercially, you know.
Exactly.
Uh,
Yeah.
the news from last week that I forgot, but it really is big. And then I'm gonna go do a quick rundown. I'm gonna go look at the news while Brown discusses this. But the Kerry King deal with him doing an extensive branch of Slayer with his new band,
Yeah. Yeah. I heard
and
about that.
the Robert Daltrey deal where he's saying he's happy in his life now, not touring with the Who. So look up those and see. Those are two major news pieces we missed last week, and then I'm going to look up the current news
All right. Go
on
ahead.
what.
All right. Now, what I'm going to look up right now is something I saw on Facebook not too long ago. A gal pal from Detroit. Actually from Detroit, originally from Detroit. She posted this. Now, you heard of Harpo's Concert Theater, right?
Yes.
Yes, Simo talked about it a few times in the past when he was on the call with us. And according to the MetroTimes.com, which I'm putting it up on my phone right now, that place is now for sale. And the owner hopes to use sale proceeds for much needed improvements. Now, the famous Harpo's Concert Theater, located on Chalmers Avenue and I 94, is getting a new owner and hopefully a new facelift. The venue, which books mostly heavy metal and hip hop acts, is currently up for sale via the Southfield based Farbman Group. The sale price is undisclosed at the moment. One of the brokers for Farbman, Brad Margolius, told Kurt, I don't know what this guy's name is. It's spelled Pinho, Pinho, I guess it's called. He told this man from Crane's Detroit business that Harpo's owner, Roosevelt, here's another name I cannot pronounce, but he's a well-known concert promoter. He owned the Blondies, he owned the Marquee, he now owns Harpo's. He's been around the local scene for many years. Well, Roosevelt plans to use the proceeds from the sale for improvements on the venue. Now, Margolius told the magazine the owner is looking to stay and continue running it. He's looking for some money to inject into re-motivations and upgrades to do more shows. Looking for Harpo's to continue with the legacy that it has, remain a concert hall, and kind of revitalize it. If someone came in and wanted to change the use, he's not interested in that. And according to the writer of this article, it says it needs a lot of TLC. And the writer says, quote, Harpo's was a bit of a dump when it started going to heavy metal shows. There is a high school student in the mid 2000s,
You went
but
there?
that's what again? I went there.
Yes.
Yes, I did. A few times in the past. I remember seeing Inde Malmsteen, White Zombie. Tried to see Ronnie James Dio, but unfortunately there was a something came up at the last damn minute. I wanted to see Merciful Fate with King Diamond, but I had to work late at the job I was working at that time. So, and plus both those shows were all ages, unfortunately. So I was never able to see both Dio or Merciful Fate. But I've seen many local bands like the Trash Brats, Seduce, Heaven's Wish, this
Those,
band, that band. Yep.
you saw those tour dates around Florida I gave you for
Zach
One-
Sabbath.
Yeah,
Yes.
no, it
No.
was it? No, it was someone. No, it was maybe the Black Crows tour.
Oh, I'm not interested in the Black Crows,
You don't fuck with the
unfortunately.
Black Crows?
No, I never
What?
was. I was never into the Black Crows, to be
They're
honest.
100% live, bro. They're live. It's live. It's 100%. It's they. There is only a couple songs I know though. You're right on that.
Yeah.
But what was it? I'm gonna look back in the sky to see what I sent you. It was a good one though. I don't think that was it because I think it would have been the Pantera deal. Let me look.
Yeah.
All right, go ahead, brother.
All right, there. So the writer continues to write. Harpo's was a bit of a dump when I first started going there back in high school, but that's also what made it such a great rock and roll venue. Cigarette stained carpets, dingy
Oh, that's what it
lighting,
was. Brown.
mush, blah, blah, blah.
It was George. It was the Lynch Mob tour. George Lynch. There's a shitload of them in Florida. Yeah,
Oh,
and
wow. Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah, I
but
see there.
George Lynch. All right, go ahead. My bad. That's a good
Okay.
one though. You know.
All right, there. But I haven't set foot in Harpo's since I was a teenager, according to the writer of this article, but I have good memories of the place. I went to my first ever metal show, Old Teb, of all things, and finally getting sprayed with alien blood by the shock rock group War, who seemed to play there almost every Halloween. Harpo's first opened as a movie theater in the 1930s before transiting to a nightclub in the 1970s, and it became a concert venue in 1979. The venue has hosted acts like Run DMC, Snoop Dogg, Judas Priest, Iron Maiden, Poison, Motorhead throughout the years. In fact, tragic tale that went on during the Motorhead performance there. The singer of one of the opening bands, Steve Carras, he sang with a local punk group called Feisty Cadavers. He was robbed and murdered in his car by some thug outside of the venue. And there was a lot of racial tension around 1991. Apparently, it was in the ghetto area where this venue was located, Chalmers Avenue, of course, as I mentioned, Harper and Chalmers. And there was a lot of fights outside the venue. I guess some of the blacks wanted to
Brian,
harass the white people. Go ahead.
Brian, you been to the venue there with white people,
Um,
like the
yeah,
vampire
what
crowd, or
do you
goth
mean?
crowd?
Golf
Like
crowd? It's both,
pretty much
white
yeah,
and
like
black.
yeah. Oh, for real?
Yep,
Eh,
absolutely.
I'd
It
be
is both.
scared, but thank you.
Yeah, don't be scared, dude.
Scared if
As long as
something.
you don't fuck with them, they don't fuck with you. Either way, whether it's thugs or metalheads or vampires, doesn't matter.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, so I know I was itching to see Iron Maiden back in 1995 when they played there, when they had that other guy, Blaze Batley, as their lead singer. But like I said, work scheduling kind of conflicted with that. But as I was saying, there was a lot of racial tensions between, some of the people outside. Well, actually, most of the people outside. Most of these black thug kids were messing with the white people. They'll go inside to see these heavy metal groups, start fights with them, make threats against them. In fact, there were a few times where me and a date that was on that night would be walking into the place and there'd be a fight outside. Wouldn't you know it? But during that period of time, the owner of the place at that time, he didn't want to talk about it because it was a bad, it left a distaste for the concert goers. I went there one time after the whole shindig went down to see a group called the Meanies, which I was a fan of at that time, and the place was just about empty. Empty. Nothing. No hardly any people there. That place really suffered a lot because of those racial wars that was going on around that period. But but what can you do at times? sucks. People gotta fuck with other people just for no reason. All right, now I know you said something here. Let me look it up here on Blabbermouth. Blabbermouth. Okay. Because I know it says
Oh, David Lee
what?
Roth is talking shit about Wolfgang now.
I
That's
know,
really the
yeah.
big.
Yeah,
But
that's
real
what I'm
quick,
looking
we
up right
got
now.
The Kerry King, and then the Who thing. If you
Yes,
can
go
find
ahead.
that, but yeah, three news pieces really, and then we'll get into the album arc.
Oh,
But real
okay.
quick, I did see the Boston and Eagles tributes this past few
Yes.
weeks.
Yeah, I
And
noticed.
let me tell you, it's interesting. The Boston tribute recorded singer, it doesn't sound spot on, but when you're there, it's spot on. The singer, like the tone, Tom Schultz tone, is all there. It's
Yep.
crazy. And the Eagles band, though, guys, like obviously, like the top tribute in the city is the Back in Black.
Oh
The
yeah, yeah. There's a documentary on them.
and then maybe like up there, like all of them are good though. All of them sound spot on, right? These are tribute bands. These aren't cover bands. These are tribute bands, so they do their best to sound just like the record, right?
Yep.
And the Kiss one's spot on because it's the music and obviously the looks. With these bands, it's not necessarily the looks they're going for; it is the sound. Besides like the AC/DC one, obviously the looks is there with the Angus and Brian character and Bond character, but I would have to say this Eagles band. I sent a video in this call. I don't know if it's loading or it's going to take some time. It looks like, but spot on, guys. I mean, and they're so spot on. I can't even. That's why y'all don't see the Eagles videos on YouTube because they say the Eagles take them down.
I don't
Um,
know why.
it's so well. The Eagles want anything that has to do with them. If money's made or anything to be with,
Obviously, I see what you're coming. I see
you know,
what you're talking about. Many
but
artists are
uh,
like that.
clubs and venues pay a fee every year for bands and people. It's like the free use act, like of songs to sing songs, but they have to pay a fee to these owners of these record labels. The owners of these basically catalogs. They
Yeah,
pay a fee to every year. Not maybe 1,000 or a couple thousand or a few hundred or so. They all make it back, but there, there's laws that people can use stuff, but then you have to pay fees for stuff too.
that's
The Eagles
true.
straight up just take your shit down, so that's why I didn't put anything up. I recorded a couple videos on that, but good God, guys, that was definitely right next to the AC/DC. I mean, all these groups sound just like they should, and just like the real thing, but there's just some groups that just blow you away in ways you can't really explain. Just Eagles have a huge catalog, guy, and y'all know that.
Absolutely there.
It might be one of the greatest, and it's a little softer for my, some of that '70s stuff. It gets a little soft, a little softer, compared to,
More
good.
soft rock, be needless to
But
say.
it still has a good guitar, right? It still
Yep.
has, so it makes up for it. When Walsh joined that band, it rocked it up a little bit.
Yep.
The Eagles. So
And you got to admit, they wrote some damn good songs. Something like Desperado, I Can't Tell You Why, The
they
Long
are,
Run, Heartache
yeah,
Tonight.
they are touring the real band right now, and tickets are like $400, $450
Wow.
bleeds on that.
Damn. Holy cow, dude.
It is a farewell on that for them, but we'll see the day of, on that. There's a couple, I do want to hit that Black Rose show, but it is like a type of thing where I only know a couple songs,
Yeah.
but I know it's 100% live, so it would be worth, you know what I'm saying? Um, but man, listen, guys, let's dive into that news. Brian, did you find? Did you want to dive into David Lee Roth Wolfgang
Yeah, I
deal
want
or?
to talk about this because I don't know what the heck. Now, there was a thing that came out not too long ago where Roth was talking about Sammy Hagar in a Negative Life, but then again, that's no surprise. Those two never really got along to begin with. Now, according to blabbermouth.com, David Lee Roth has blasted Wolfgang Van Halen for allegedly, quote, throwing out some of the singers invited guests at a couple of concerts during Van Halen's final tour. In a video posted on YouTube titled This Crazy Kid, originally titled This Fucking Kid, before it was changed, obviously. It was, of course, an effort to make more YouTube friendly, obviously. Roth recalled the alleged incidents, saying in part, as transcribed in blabbermouth.net, this fucking kid, he's been complaining the whole entire tour like I'm not paying enough attention to him on stage, like Santa Claus coming down the chimney and popping out all the Christmas with nobody paying attention. Shalom is the dome. Shalom to the dome, homie. I'm giving him the best, everything I've gotten in front of 20, 30,000 people at a clip, and he's complaining to everyone about me. The business manager, the security guy, the clothing lady, they saying Dave's not paying enough attention to me. Cut to New York City, glamorous, glistering, shimmering New York City. And we're at Jones Beach with 20,000 of my closest friends. I walk out into the middle of the stage. I'm going to do Ice Cream Man, and I'm testifying to the brothers, Eddie, Al, saying, hey, man, this is how many times we played New York. This is spectacular. I don't know if is this kid, this whatever we call it, kid is S. It's
I
spelled
see.
S
See, Steve.
H. Some no, nothing like that there. But this dumb kid, we'll call him that, has commandeered a couple of monkeys to go in
Commandeered.
back. Thank you very much. He commandeered a couple of monkeys to go in back behind my back to the side of the stage and throw out these great two dames that I invited to be guests on the show. And these dames are in their 40s, okay?
Wow.
Businesswomen, in fact. You ain't gonna believe this shit. This fucking kid. What he doesn't know is that these two dames work for the accounting firm that represent him, not me. But as usual, he is just like his uncle and his uncle's brother. Stiff them for tickets. I know they're gonna do that, so I got ahead of things and I gave them tickets. I put them way off to the
It's
side.
crazy.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I'm not talking Motley
You really
Crue
didn't say
groupies
Eddie
here.
Van Halen by name. He said his fucking uncle's brother. What?
Yeah, that's what it says in the article.
Lee Roth is a dickhead, right, Brown?
It's a couple. Yeah, sometimes he can be. This is the real deal. Roth continues, and they're both carrying big satchel purses, right? Like Gucci. Here we go, and he throws them out of the building. He's teaching me a lesson. What does this kid really know? What doesn't he know? They're carrying the paychecks for all 82 people on the road crew. Nobody tells me until I'm parked in the middle of the fucking bridge. Fucking James Beach. I think they're going to freak out. I laughed so hard I spilled my Snapple. Roth continues saying, cut to Hollywood. That's Gooey Bahuli Hollywood. We're playing the Hollywood Bowl in October of 2015. It's the last two shows of the tour, and Eddie is not having a good day this year. So I know, hey, maybe I always got to play it like, what if this was our last show? This is important to me. We're celebrating our 15-year anniversary here from where we first started, arguing over which song is first. Stay focused. The brothers are playing. I walk out on stage at the Hollywood Bowl, and this is the very last show that we're playing. I start getting tears in my eyes, and I testified to Ed, and I testified to Alex, all that. Hey, we started right down the street at this little nightclub called Kazari's. We were playing dance tunes, and our parents didn't give a shit. We made every penny go right into the gas tank and onto the guitar strings fretboard. Okay,
Brownie
here we
Crunch.
go. We're at the Hollywood Bowl. I'm about to launch into Ice Cream Man, and this fucking kid, he commandeers two muscle monkeys, locates the one dame that is my guest. She's off in the wings of the Hollywood Bowl. They find her, make her do the walk of shame, pass all the other guests out to the parking lot, throw her out of the building. And Wolfie's going to teach me a lesson by throwing out what he thinks is my girlfriend. But guess what? Not only does this, not only is this an accountant, but not only is she carrying the
Brownie, you
paychecks.
crying right now?
No,
Okay,
I'm not. I can't right now until we get the things settled with the OBS. But
thank
I'm
you.
recording this on my Skype. In
Thank you,
fact,
brother.
I detailed it earlier. Not only is this an accountant once again, and not only is she carried the paychecks for 82 of us on the road, but she's carried some cash bonuses for everybody out there. You may want to pull over on the next one. You're going to pee your pants. Remember New York City? It's the same lady. Roth added, this fucking kid. And that's how I remember my last show with Eddie Van Halen. Now, with Wolfgang on bass during those tours with Roth back in the helm, which was between 2007 and 2012 and 2015, the band's final run of shows took place in the summer and fall of 2015. The North American trek included 41 concerts beginning on July of that year and ending on October of the same year. Man, so I guess Wolfie, according to Roth, is kind of developing the rock star attitude. Like this person could stay, that person cannot stay, blah, blah, blah. What it seems like to me. Now, now back in December 2021, Wolfgang, who joined his father, Eddie, in Van Halen at the age of 16 for the 2007 reunion tour with Roth, replacing Michael Anthony, of course, was asked about David's retirement in an interview with Consequence of Sound. Wolfie said, quote, Dave is he's a very much of a one of a kind sort of guy. We don't really talk, if ever. We were always cordial on our tours together, but it's not like I've spoken to him all in the last 6 years. But I mean, he's fucking David Lee Roth. I'm so happy for him and everything that he has accomplished, and he's just a phenomenal. He'll always be he'll always be one of the best. Now, in November 2020, Wolfie told Rolling Stone about his relationship with Roth. He once again said we're cordial, but it was very business related. We're always cool, but we are always, but we, let me say this, but we really only ever saw each other on stage. That's about it. So what it looks like to me, Wolfie is kind of like he's I guess Roth invited some gals to hang out on the side of the stage, and these are accountants, and Wolfie mistook them for a bunch of groupies or other people, and he had them thrown out. The question I want to know is, why wasn't this settled back then after the show? That's what I'd like to know. Anyone?
Thank you.
All right.
Okay.
All right.
The Kerry King news.
Okay, so I guess Kerry King is putting together a new band. It's like an extension of Slayer, Slayer 2.0, I guess it's called. Let me look for the article right now. Let me get
Yeah.
this, and then we'll get to our Zeppelin
Would that
conversation.
that ever be something you'd be interested in seeing, the Kerry King band?
Let's see, a new band here. Let me see here. Oh, here's. Oops, my bad. Kerry King's new band will be simply called Kerry King, has announced 2 U.S. shows so far. May 9th of this year at the Welcome to Rockville Festival in Daytona International Speedway in, of course, Daytona Beach, Florida. And May 16th of this year at the Silent Temple Art and Music Festival in the historic Crew Stadium in Columbus, Ohio. Okay, I got the blabber mouth once again. Now, we go back to the article. It went out of place. In a new interview with Metal Hammer magazine, Kerry King revealed that the upcoming debut album from his new solo project has been done since June of last year. Regarding the musical direction of his solo material, the 59-year-old musician said, quote, "If I was ever to try anything different from Slayer, I guess that would be the time. But no, I really have no desire to do anything different. If I wasn't in Slayer, I would be a Slayer fan. So yes, I think it's an extension of Slayer, and I think a lot of people will think that it would have been the next record that Slayer would put out. I guess about 80% of it would have been. Now, I guess obviously he's carrying on the Slayer sound and mode with this new group. So we'll have to wait and see for that. I will read the rest of the article, but I don't want to keep Ark waiting on our main discussion, which of course Led Zeppelin 1 to be exact. But I'll just read this one little quotation from Mr. King. Quote, "There's definitely some fast stuff on it. It's not the fastest thing I have ever done, but I've done pretty fast stuff. Indeed, they have. There's definitely some Hercules like speeds getting achieved in this, but there's heavy stuff. There's punky stuff, there's doomy stuff, pretty much any aspect of any kind of music we've done in our history, I think you'll find on this record." All right. In fact, the slowest song that Slayer has ever done was a song called "When the Stillness Comes." That one came out really cool and real spooky. And there was the one where my entire intention was to write something like the Scorpions' Magnetism album, crossed with the song of Hell Awaits. That one came together pretty early. I like that song a lot. I mean, I like a lot of them too, but that one's got a real different vibe for sure. So, new Kerry King is going to be new Kerry King project is going to be doing 2 dates this year in Florida and Ohio. So most definitely, all the Slayer fans out there definitely keep an eye out for Kerry King's new project. Definitely for sure. All right, there. All right, so shall we begin with our main discussion, guys? Let's up in number one. And
Okay.
all right, there. Let's go. Sorry, I had to keep it waiting, Ark, but we had to get the music news out in the open there. Ark,
Yes.
I'll let you take the helm, dude.
Okay.
All right.
I don't have any data up, so this is going to be from memory.
Yep.
This was released in 1969.
Yes.
And I guess first thing was asked is when was the first time you obviously you weren't there for its release in 1969.
No.
When was the first time you saw and or heard it?
Well, I only heard. I heard it when I first started listening to rock radio around the year 1979. I was about, I think it was about 12 or 13, around that point. It was a year after I first discovered the Beatles, and I started listening to radio. I discovered Queen, Toto, Kiss, many other bands around that time. I remember hearing a couple of tracks by Led Zeppelin. One that stood out for me was Dazed and Confused. And one of the things that got me was the middle of the song where Jimmy Page was using that violin bow on his guitar. That was kind of like and at that time there was a big open empty space across where we lived, and I would look out on the window at that particular space while that song was playing, especially in the middle section where the violin bow was being performed on the guitar, and was like, wow, this is interesting, cool. This is way interesting, man. Wow. And it's to say that, months later, Zeppelin would release their album Into the Outdoor, which was a massive hit on the radio. Fool in the Rain, I'm Gonna Crawl, the first track from side two, that was played a lot on the radio. All My Love, almost every track for that album was being played on the radio, especially Fool in the Rain. That was even a hit single for the group at one point.
Yeah. I was actually around when it came out.
Mm-hmm.
I was working at a department store, and I was browsing through the 8 tracks because, that was kind of one of my areas.
Mm-hmm.
And I came across the new ones, and I saw this one, and I looked at it and said, well, this is kind of interesting. So, because I could do it, I opened it up and put it in the players to play for everybody. And it opened
Right.
with Good Times, Bad Times.
Good song.
And I'm sitting there, first time I've ever heard of the group, first time I ever saw them, first thing I knew about them. And I kind of was sitting there listening to it and going, this is pretty cool. 8-track. And ended up, of course, I was working also, but I ended up hearing the whole thing that day. So I heard it pretty much around the time it got released.
All right.
On 8-track.
And 8 tracks were the thing back then, back in the day there.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, records were still around, but 8-tracks were a lot handier for people.
Yeah, it was a lot more compact.
Dr. Brother, they had 8-track players built in the cars as well, or?
Yeah. Or you could have them installed, one or the other. I did
Same
both.
thing with tape players. Or cassette players, as we would now call them nowadays. Back then, they were just called tapes. Now we call them cassettes or
So
cassette
they never
tapes.
had it where you could put a record inside, your car. They never had a machine like that.
Well,
not that I'm aware of. I don't know that you'd want that.
No, you remember they used to have like the CD changers. You could put a box.
Well,
in the
yeah,
back
that's different.
Remember something like that.
That's something like that. Yeah.
But that album just really made a huge impression on me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's true. It did. It's made an impression on everybody else. When you think about it, was one of the real first hard rock albums in the world at that time that was basically had a lot of pop music going on.
Yeah, I mean, I was getting kind of tired of pop music for the most part, so I was kind of looking for something.
Yep.
And boy, when that one hit, I mean, it was highly. The bad thing about 8-tracks, and I don't know if you knew this or not, was sometimes they would, to make the tracks fit,
Mm-hmm.
there were songs that got cut.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Many people used to complain about that.
Geez.
Do they have singles? Do they have single 8-track? Your favorite song?
I don't think they had it. Like
generally albums.
Yep.
The one I remember getting butchered pretty bad is the Who, Tommy, but that's a different subject. I mean, when I got the records later, in some cases on some of the 8 tracks that got butchered and I didn't know it,
Mm-hmm.
when I played the records, it was like, where'd that part come from? That sort of thing. And the other thing 8 tracks used to do is to make them fit. Sometimes they would fade a song out, do the click thing, and then the song would come back in
Yep.
because they couldn't get them right.
You know what? You're not the only one because I had 8 tracks myself, and it would do that with Black Sabbath's technical ecstasy. It would do that with the Moody Blues. Every good boy deserves favor. It would do that with this track. It would do that with that track. Of course, I can imagine. I remember seeing a lot of times they would have double albums on 8 track form. I hope they didn't do any cutting of the songs back then, but that's most likely
Tommy,
unlikely. Tommy, they did that as well.
they cut at least one entire song
Wow.
and about 5 minutes of another one.
Yeah.
Amazing Journey and Sparks, they cut
Mm.
pretty good bit of that one.
But
And
then
it
again,
was weird because I didn't know it till I got the album and I was listening to it and I was like, I don't remember this.
I think because the issue is that 8 tracks had a certain time length onto it.
Well, not
Like
only that, you needed 4 tracks to be exactly the same or close to the same.
Yeah, which
And
is
it's not always going to work out that way.
exactly, and most of the tracks, basically, they're divided into 4 programs, 1 through 4, and usually these programs are usually about 10 or 11 minutes time limit. In fact, here's something else. You may remember Pink Floyd's Animals, your favorite arc. They had a different version of Pigs on the Wing. Instead of Pigs on the Wing Part 1 to Part 2, he had a full version featuring the guitar solo from one of their backup guitars, Snowy White. Of course, they had to extend Dogs, and of course Sheep into 2 bits for each program. No doubt about that, if I'm correct.
I was lucky enough not to have that particular 8 track.
Oh, yeah. You probably got I know you got the album, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So did I, man. Oh, you was going to say something, Wire?
How much comparable back then to cassettes, 8 tracks, and vinyl records? What was the price points on those?
Wow. Well, I thought
Were
they
they
were kind of
about the same?
expensive, but I know an album, you could pretty much purchase it for, I think it was $2.99, maybe $1.99.
Wow, back then, wow, that's because when I was buying vinyl, it was the usual price. It was a budget release. It would probably be about $5 or $6.99. The one that was out right now would cost about $7 or $8.99. If it was a double album, it'll be about possibly $10.99 or $9.99.
Depending on the artist.
Exactly. In fact,
How
I got to
much
admit,
8 tracks cost?
yeah.
I think you could buy an 8 track for $2 or $3, but I don't remember for
Wow.
sure.
Wow, that's something there. It kind of reminds me of the Clash. They was able to convince their record label that they were putting a free 12-inch single on the Next to the London Calling album. It was originally supposed to have been a single album, but they convinced the record company that they're including this free 12-inch single along with it. And by doing that, they were able to keep the price range of London Calling down to about $7 or $8.99.
Yeah, there were some artists that would release doubles that generally were about the same price as the singles.
Yep. The Clash was able to get away with it. They deserve credit for that. But one of the standout tracks for me was, of course, the one I mentioned, Dazed and Confused. And plus, we cannot forget their Willie Dixon covers of I Can't Quit You, Baby, and You Shook Me. One of my old homies back in Southeast Michigan, he loved that song. He was trying to sing it out every time he heard it on the radio. He had it in his collection as well. The first album, still loves it to this day. He even posted a track on his Facebook page, and whom I did deny. Who cannot? You gotta remember, Robert Plant definitely wailed with a big blues enthusiasm. That's for sure.
Yeah. It was one of those albums that, like I said, I listened to it and it was rare, not totally rare back then, but every single track was good.
Mm-hmm.
Way, and it was the first time I discovered somebody that knew how to drum,
Oh
especially
yeah.
on, well, Dazed and Confused, pretty good licks in there.
Yep.
And how many more times?
Oh yeah. Bad. Another badass from that album.
And let's see, Babe, I'm Gonna Leave You.
Which I guess is traditionally rearranged by Jimmy Page.
And Communication Breakdown.
There's one there as well.
What's that? What followed it?
Black Mountain Side.
Yeah, that's it.
Yep. That's one that follows. That's when Your Time Is Going to Come. Probably one of the most
Oh, yeah.
powerful revenge inflicting songs that the Zeps had ever done. Of course, we cannot forget, we discussed it many times, the situation with the song Dazed and Confused. Because as you know, the Yardbirds, when Page was still involved with them before their disbandment, they did a show in San Francisco, I think the city was, and Jake Holmes, who had an album of his own called The Far Outside of Jake Holmes, he was singing a song called Dazed and Confused with different lyrics. It was an acoustic number. And
Well, did he call it Dazed and Confused or not?
yes, he did. Absolutely.
Because I know the Yardbirds called it I'm Confused.
Yep. Well, actually, I know he did that for something. I guess it was another program or a soundtrack or something like that. You know, things like that work out for various bands. In fact, they even performed the Yardbirds even performed their version of Jake Holmes's Dazed and Confused on a French TV show. Look for it on YouTube, Yardbirds Dazed and Confused, and it's right there with the original lyrics. But I guess for the Zeppelin first album version, Robert Plant decided to write new lyrics for the song. And I guess nowadays, when you buy the reissue that's on vinyl today, it'll say in the songwriting credit, inspired by Jake Holmes. Because, I guess Holmes kind of took Zeppelin to court over that whole situation.
No, I'm sure he did.
Yeah, absolutely. There. In fact, they incorporated a lot of other songs onto that album, like during the "How Many More Times" song. Robert Plant says in one interlude, "They call me the Hunter,"
Right, which is an
yeah,
old song.
yeah, which is done by Booker T and the MGs, if I'm correct. And also, let's not forget that Plant sings lines from the song San Francisco by Scott McKenzie, and the song remains the same. They're their version of Dazed and Confused. In fact, one person said it best. Does this mean that Zeppelin were probably the best cover band out there?
Well, they also, Stairway to Heaven,
Oh,
kind
yeah.
of stole a lick from old Spirit song Taurus.
Yes, Taurus. Yes, I remember that. That was taken to court for how many years? And the courts ruled in favor of Led Zeppelin.
Well, the funny thing about it was the original guy that wrote it, Randy California,
Yep.
he thought it was cool and he left it alone.
Mm-hmm.
And the former members sued later after
Yeah.
Randy
And
California died.
Yeah, it's true. I guess they were waiting till Randy dies before they finally took action, I guess.
Yeah, that's kind of what it looks like.
All right. Now, much credit to their manager, Peter Grant, because this man would stick his neck out for his boys most definitely. He made sure that Actually, he made record companies pay for the artwork themselves, for understand. He was a pro wrestler, he was a bouncer in a few nightclubs, and he had also witnessed how bands, artists would get ripped off by their managers, agents, um, such and such. And he vowed never to let that happen to his boys, that's for sure. In fact, you've watched go ahead, Wire.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. In fact, you watch the Song Remains the Same movie. You see Peter Grant going off on some guy, for some sort of an issue there. I'm not too sure what it was, but he was giving them all sorts of hell. And the guy that he was yelling at just walked away in silence. Enough said. And nobody crossed this guy's path twice, for sure. In fact, here's another story. John Bonham's son, Jason, apparently took off this sign off of somewhere. The roadie saw it and he slapped little Jason. Word got around to both Peter Grant and John Bonham of what this security guard did. They cornered the security guard into this room, and needless to say, when it was all done, only Bonham and Grant walked out. I guess the room was left in shambles as a result. Never mess with Peter Grant, that's for sure. And said that he's no longer with us because we need more managers like him for sure. Because many bands in the 1970s and 60s got ripped off massively, without a doubt. Okay. So, Wire, what do you got to say about the Zeppelin's first album? Have you heard it
I
in its
never heard of.
entirety? What do you?
I never heard it.
Yeah. So, what do you think?
I like the. I like physical graffiti better, brother.
That's well. There's something wrong with that album. That's for sure.
No,
All right. I got the songs from the album here. Babe, I'm Gonna Leave You was a rearrangement of a song composed by Anne Brendan in the 1950s.
Well, it
Page
opens
had,
with good times, bad times.
yep, all right. I'm talking about, yeah, I know that. Well, this is the second track from side one. Page had heard the song recorded by Joan Baez for her 62 album, Joan Baez in Concert. Remember, it's Joan Baez who originally wrote and recorded Diamonds and Rust, which Judas Priest would later
yes.
made into a heavy metal anthem. It was one of the first numbers that he worked on with Plant when the two first met in August of 1968. Page played the Gibson J200 acoustic and Telecaster on the track. Page had Plant had originally sang this song in a heavier style, similar to other performances on the album, but was persuaded by Page to re-record it to allow some light and shade onto the track. The first track, Good Times, Bad Times, was a commercial sounding track that was considered the group's debut single in the UK, and they released it as such in the US as well, as showcasing the whole band and their heavy style. Despite being a strong track, it was seldom performed by Zeppelin live. In fact, the only time we ever seen it performed live was when they did that Celebration Day concert back in 2007 in the O2 Arena. Okay? You Shook Me was a blues song with lyrics by Willie Dixon and fitted in with the British blues boom that was going when the album was being recorded. Page, Plant, and John Paul Jones took solos on each separately. First it was Hammond organ, then harmonica by Plant, and then, of course, guitar by Page himself. When it was, which was then a novel production device. What it was a backwards echo used on the towards the end of the track. You know where it's like an echo, but it backwards. That
All right.
was used on the guitar and Plant's vocals before the boom, boom, bum, bum. That's the end of the track. It was a backwards echo, and by the way, it's pretty unique when you think about it. Back then, it was a novel production device on the
Oh,
call and
yeah.
response between the vocal and guitar towards the end. The song had been recorded by Jeff Beck for his album Truth, which came out a year prior, and Beck couple times says he was unhappy about Led Zeppelin copying his arrangement. Now, of course, we talked about Dazed Confused being the situation between singer Jake Holmes. And of course, it goes on to here to say Dazed Confused was an important part of Zeppelin's live shows throughout their early career. It became a vehicle for the group improvisation, eventually stretching the track out to about 30 minutes. In fact, on the song Remains the Same, Dazed and Confused takes up all of side 2, to be exact, on that album. The improvisation would sometimes include parts of another song, like The Grunge or Walter's Walk, later released on both Houses of the Holy and Coda. Joni Mitchell's Woodstock, Scott McKenzie's San Francisco. Be sure to wear some flowers in your hair. It was briefly dropped from the live set after 1975 after Page injured one of his fingers, but reinstated for the remainder of that tour. The last full live performance during Zeppelin's main career was in Earl's Court in London later that year. After the violin bow section of the song's guitar solo was played as a standalone piece. It was revered as a complete song performance at the concert, the O2 concert, because they can't pronounce the first name of the guy who signed him to Atlantic Records, to be exact. Hamed Edge Gun. Oh, see if you can figure out Ark. Thank goodness. I see.
I don't know if I want to even try that one.
Okay, I won't. I'll spell out his
Names
name.
are a different deal.
I know, same thing with me. Remember, I grew up with basic words, basic names, so that's why when we do these shows, I have trouble pronouncing this word, that word there, let alone spelling them. Side 2, Your Time Is Gonna Come opens with John Paul Jones playing an unaccompanied organ solo. Leading into the verse, Page plays an acoustic and pedal steel guitar. It has a crossfade into Black Mountainside, an acoustic instrumental piece that Page did. A second instrumental track based on an arrangement of the traditional folk song Black Water Side, and influenced by the folk playing of what's this person's name? Jan Sitch and John Renbourn. The song was regularly performed live as a melody with the Yardbirds' solo guitar number, White Summer. Communication Breakdown was built around a page that a guitar riff came up. That page came, let me rephrase that. It was built around a guitar riff that Page came up with, and one of the first tunes the group worked on. They enjoyed playing it live, and consequently, it became a large part of their set. It was played throughout the whole group's career, often as an encore. Another Willie Dixon penned blues number called I Can't Quit You Baby. That was recorded live in the studio and arranged as a slower and more laid back style to the other material on the album. And of course, the closing track, How Many More Times, was the group's closing live number in their early career. It was improvised around an old Howlin' Wolf number called How Many More Years, and a guitar riff that Page had came up with, which developed spontaneously into a jam session. The track includes a bolero section similar to Jeff Beck's Bolero, which was written by and featured Page, Sieges into Rosie, and of course The Hunter, as I mentioned, which were improvised during the recording.
Dr.
Page
Brown,
played, yeah.
we do have our brother Bird in the chat. We shout out to him.
Shout out, Bird. What's up, dude?
Shout out to Birdman, brother.
If you want to join the call, go ahead and let us know. Anybody else in the chat we got to say hi to?
That's about it, pretty much.
Okay, there. All right. Now, Page played the guitar with the violin bow during the middle section of the track, just like he did with Dazed and Confused. Now, there was some unreleased material, like Baby Come On Home, Sugar Mama. They were left off the album. And they were respectively reissued on the 2015 reissue of the album Coda. And of course, the artwork, as we know, was inspired by the disaster of the Hindenburg blimp.
Well, you did say how they got their name, right?
Yep, exactly. A remark by The Who's Keith Moon saying that it would sink like a lead balloon. And wouldn't you know, Zeppelin would have the last laugh. The image was chosen by Page, featuring a black and white image of the German Zeppelin Hindenburg, photographed by Mr. Sam Scher on May of 1947, when the airship burst into flames when landing in New Jersey. The image refers to the origin of the band's name itself. When Page, Beck, and the Who's Keith Moon and John Entwistle were discussing the idea of forming a group, Moon joked it would probably go over like a lead balloon. And Entwistle,
well, I think he said Led Zeppelin.
And Entwistle reportedly replied, a Led Zeppelin. Yep. Usually, John Entwistle actually came up with the name there. When you think about it, they just took out the E in the word lead. And the back cover features a photograph of the band taken by a person named Dreja, Dreja. The entire design of the album sleeve was coordinated by George Hardy, with whom the band would consider to collaborate with future sleeves. Hardy himself had created the first cover illustration, rendering that the famous original black and white photograph in ink used in a rapidograph technological pen and a what's it called, a menzo tint technique.
Got me.
Like I said, I'm learning these phrases and words for the very first time, so pardon me, folks. Now, that image will be definitely, most definitely, it's definitely an iconic photograph. That's for sure. In fact, when we think of blimps, we think of Led Zeppelin. In fact, if we were to see a blimp nowadays, let me rephrase that. The only blimps that we would see growing up were the Goodyear blimps, when you think about it.
Yeah, they were touting those things as being a passenger type thing that would compete with airlines and such.
Yep.
But basically, after the disaster, no one wanted to touch it with a 10-foot pole or any kind of pole.
Yeah. Now, the cover of the album gained a further attention when in February 1970, in a gig in Copenhagen, the band were billed as the Knobs, N-O-B-S, as a result of a legal threat from aristocrat Eva von Zeppelin, who was a relative of the creator of the Zeppelin aircraft. Von Zeppelin, upon seeing the logo and the Hindenburg crashing in flames on the front cover, threatened legal action over the concert taking place. In 2001, Greg Kot, K-O-T is how it's spelled, wrote in Rolling Stone that the cover of the Led Zeppelin album shows the Hindenburg airship and all its phallic glory going down in flames. the image did a pretty good job of excuse me, what's that word? God damn it.
I don't know. Spell it.
Okay, I will do
Okay.
it right now. Nencapsul.
Encapsulate.
Thank you. Encapsulating the music inside. Sex, catastrophe, and things blowing up. Now, the legacy of the album, which by the way was a success and highly influential, is widely acknowledged and even by publications that were intentionally skeptical. Many critics didn't really care for Led Zeppelin, but the fans loved it. They loved it by the pound. All right. And it also
Yeah, no,
would
boy,
spark off a
I
lot
was
of hard rock.
awestruck.
But again,
I forgot to mention, yeah, that struck a chord with me.
it struck a chord with everybody. Like I said, it was mostly a pop music market that was out there prior to this album coming out. In fact, it fits to say that years on down the line, pop music was reigning supreme on the album and pop charts over MTV until an album called Appetite for Destruction would come out in 1987. Of course, it took a year for that album to finally get off the ground, but it was well worth it. Right. All right, so the album is still out. Let's not forget the when you get to the thing here, the 2014 reissue. Got to end our program with this, along with the next two albums from Zeppelin. The album was remastered and reissued in June of 2014. The reissue comes in 6 formats: a standard CD edition, a deluxe 2 CD edition, a standard LP version, a deluxe 3 album version, and a deluxe 2 CD plus 3 album version with a hardback book as high resolution 24-bit 96K digital downloads. The deluxe and super deluxe editions feature bonus material from a concert at the Olympia in Paris, France, recorded in October of '69, previously available only in bootleg forms. The reissue was released with an inverted black and white version of the original album's work as its bonus disc cover, when you think about it. Now, the reissue was met with widespread critical acclaim. As Metacritic, which assigns a normalized rating out of 100 to reviews from mainstream publications, the album received an average score of 97 based on 10 reviews. Q magazine deemed it an improvement over previous remasters of the album and credited James' contribution to the remaster with really revealing more detail. Another publication found the bonus disc particularly exciting for his review of All Music, writing that it's not tight, but that's its appeal, as it shows how the band was a vital living beast playing differently on stage as he did in the studio. And Paste magazine writer Ryan Reed said, for years, Zepp heads have tolerated the murky fidelity of the 90s remasters until the reissue, which finally punches and shimmers instead of fizzing in fuzz. He was critical of the bonus disc, however, believing it was remaining inessential, the very definition of your diehards only. It demonstrates Zeppelin at their most bloated, sloppy, fumbling through rhythmic cues and extending tracks for their breaking point. All right. All right. So, I am no doubt about it. this was start of something good, no doubt about it. And it's a shame that
And of
when you
course, I
think of,
got to kind of agree with YR. Uh, Physical graffiti is the one.
yeah,
Right.
that's true
So,
there.
like,
Absolutely. We got
maybe
it.
production wise on the first wasn't so great, but like, what band lasted longer, Black Sabbath originally or Led Zeppelin?
Well,
Yeah.
Zeppelin called it, I would have to say Black Sabbath because Zeppelin called it quits after John Bonham died in September of 1980. And they were supposed to do a U.S. tour at that time. Black Sabbath at that year had gotten Ronnie James Dio as their new frontman after they booted out Ozzy. And years on down the line, Sabbath would get another singer, Ian Gillan, to Tony Martin, to Glenn Hughes, and they would keep on, keep on, and keep on. But in the mind of many rock fans out there, including you and I, both Zeppelin and Sabbath remained the two top notches in hard rock and heavy metal. In fact,
Well,
the two bands were friends.
the one note I'll make is Led Zeppelin pretty much remained the four guys the entire time.
That's true.
Black Sabbath went through changes.
A lot of changes, a lot of lineup changes, no doubt about that. At one point, they was even considering David Coverdale as for the next singer of Black Sabbath. At one point,
It would have been interesting.
more than interesting, that's for sure. But Coverdale at that time was busy with his band Whitesnake, which was doing pretty well around 1984 with the album Slide It In. But nevertheless, Sabbath and Zeppelin still remains the tops of heavy metal and hard rock history. In fact, there was a many. I remember Filthy Mouth Gamer mentioned this on a call on Ken's program one time. He mentioned to me that despite the rumors of a rivalry between the two groups, the two bands were friends with one another. In fact, apparently there was a jam session between the two groups that sadly, I don't know if it was ever recorded or if it was ever audio recorded or videotaped. Well, of course, they didn't have video back then. What am I talking about? Duh. But it would have been massively awesome to see Zeppelin and Sabbath jam it together in some rehearsal hall and have it recorded. That's for sure. All right, I think Wire was supposed to said something, I guess.
Well, coming up, we're gonna have Dr. Brown. If you have a little bit of time tonight.
Yes, I do. A little bit
All right.
there,
Well,
yeah.
I got the stream. Or I got the stream ready. After
All
this,
right.
will be great debate with Scott and Dr. Brown. And
Okay.
this Dr. Brown, Scott's not coming after you. He's not gonna, try to come find you and kill you or anything. He
I
just
know that. That's true.
wants you to understand that you might be wrong in the situation. But we're gonna dive into it. But I feel
Well, as
like
long as I'm allowed to speak, because I was overtalked the last time.
thank you.
Okay. Right there. All right, so this closes out tonight's episode of Music Maniacs with, of course, me, Arknolia, and YR. YR, you mentioned something about doing talking about the great managers in pro wrestling for possible
Yes,
WrestleManiacs
yes.
episode.
And then the other topic, and this is a list topic. This one can go on for a week. This is another one we can do for a while. Arc
Mhm.
is players that use Les Pauls versus players that used Stratocasters,
Mm.
two most popular guitars. And I think I see more. I see a lot of both, right? But I feel like, especially in the recording studio, people use the Gibson Les Paul for that
Yeah.
tone. You know what I'm saying? But maybe a list of people who famously use Gibson Les Paul, like your Slashes and others, versus ones that use Stratocasters. That'll be a good list, and I feel like that'll go on for long because obviously you can do. There's a few reggae artists. Bob Marley used that Junior um, Studio Les Paul, and then obviously you can throw in country artists, maybe like a Brad Paisley that uses Or Keith Urban. I know he uses the Telecasters type deal, or Stratocasters, and Brad Paisley uses the Telecasters, Stratocasters. So
Yeah.
you can not just rock. Obviously, there's a lot of rock that uses those, but it can be a long list type thing, Art. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
All right.
Yeah.
So the artist equipment, we got to definitely talk about that sometime in the future. That's for sure. And so, which music topic are we doing next week? You do want to look at Black Sabbath #1?
I thought we talked Hotel California.
Okay, we'll definitely do Hotel California next week. Definitely for sure. All right, so for Ark, YR, and myself, all right, this closes out our episode of Music Maniacs. And are we doing WrestleManiacs tomorrow night?
Yes, I'll.
Okay, gotcha.
And then I sent you the link for the show for the StreamYard Brown. You
Okay,
want to
gotcha.
take a little 5-minute break? I'm gonna get it all together here.
All right, got to go take a leak. All right.
So thank you,
All
bud.
right there. All right
All
there.
right.
We'll see
And
you
I'll
tomorrow.
see you guys tomorrow.
All right there. We'll see everybody else tomorrow. Everyone, have a good time. Bye bye.
Okay.
All right. See ya.
Bye.
Bye bye.